Just a few general things that I like to do on a direct examination of a plaintiff. First, just considering our plaintiff and what their capabilities are as a witness. So here we have a bright, smart, good-looking, attractive guy as a plaintiff. We want the jury to like him. That's the most important thing, because for some reason a jury may not like me, a jury may not like certain things about the case, but if they like the plaintiff, they're much more likely to do good things for him at the end of the case. Chris had mentioned when he was discussing opening statements, face the issues head on. Here, it's very clear that the two big issues are the sole proximate cause defense and the plaintiff's ability to work or not work. And you'll see that we'll ask the questions that we expect to come from defense counsel regarding why the plaintiff did what he did and what our explanations for that are. And that has to be dealt with on direct. Regarding the plaintiff's ability to return to work, I always do an analysis with the cases that I handle as far as what I'm going to counsel my client on regarding whether they should be working or shouldn't be working. It's really easy when it's clear that there's a catastrophic injury and it's an impossible argument to make that the plaintiff can be working. Here, you have a 38-year-old, well, 38 at the time of the accident. He's 40 years old right now. He has a degree from a community college in restaurant management. So it becomes more difficult to take the position he can't work in any capacity. And when someone is making $85,000 a year here, $75,000 a year, and they're suddenly in a position where they're working as a restaurant manager for $15 an hour, working less than full-time with no benefits, I'll take that any day of the week. And I'd rather have the argument that the plaintiff is making the effort to do something, because it makes it very difficult to take the position he could be doing a better job when he's working and he's trying. So, and then venue is also considered when we're making these decisions. Is it more pro-plaintiff friendly venue where we can be more aggressive with the earnings claim, or is it a more conservative county where someone really is going to be looking hard at the plaintiff and whether or not they can do anything at all? So, that being said, good morning, Ms. Jerry.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good afternoon. Could you just keep your voice up, please, so that the folks all the way in back can hear everything that you have to say?
Yes.
Okay. And when were you born?
I was born in 1973.
And where do you live right now?
I live in New Rochelle, New York.
Do you live there with anyone?
With my wife and my two daughters.
How long have you been married?
I've been married about 18 years.
And you're happily married?
Yes, sir.
And the two Utes?
The two Utes.
Utes.
What's a Ute?
What are you have two girls?
I have two girls.
And
Lauren and Christine.
Okay.
Lauren is 12 and Christine is 10.
Okay. And just could you briefly discuss your educational background?
Sure. I graduated from New Rochelle High School, and after that I went to Westchester Community College, where I got an associate's degree in restaurant management. I worked doing that for less than a year, and my father had been in the carpentry business, so he got me a job doing roofing work, which I really fell in love with, and that's what I had done ever since, until the time of the accident.
And what was the reason that you decided to get out of the restaurant business?
Well, pay wasn't very good initially. That was one reason. The other reason was the roofing work. It was better benefits. I got full benefits because I was in a union. I was able to work outside. I was able to work using my hands. I just really enjoyed it. That was probably the biggest reasons I loved doing it.
Being outside?
Being outside, working on roofs, nice days. You know, I would always feel proud of a building that I would drive past and say, oh, I did the roof on that building. I remember my dad doing that when we were little with buildings that he helped build, and it was just something I was just very proud of.
How long have you been in the construction field?
15 years.
And have you had any training as a construction worker?
Yes, I have.
Could you explain that to the jury,
Sure.
please?
I was when I first wanted to do some the carpentry roofing work. I had to join a union where I apprenticed for about a year, and then once I was qualified enough and I took the necessary training and safety courses, etc., to be certified as a roofer, I became a journeyman, and then it was basically on-the-job training at that point, and I've done that ever since.
What does it mean to be a journeyman?
Journeyman means I'm a member of the union. I get the highest pay grade. I am, an experienced and qualified enough to do all aspects of a roofing job for any given job site. I'm not limited to what I can do as an apprentice would be.
And what goes with that is certain benefits as well.
Certain benefits. I get higher benefits as a journeyman. I get full benefits, including all health benefits for myself, my family, dental, a pension. There's probably a few other things.
Annuity.
Annuity, that's right. Life insurance, et cetera. That's when you become a journeyman, a lot of things go with that.
And your children's health benefits.
Children's health benefits,
well,
yep. Health, my children, my wife, dental for them, everything.
Okay, so let's talk about the job that you were on at the time that you got hurt.
Okay.
Where was that?
It was at Beecham High School.
Okay, and this was August of 2011, correct?
That's right, yes.
And how long had you been on that job prior to the time that you got hurt?
We started right in the beginning of August. I think it was either August 2nd or August 3rd. It's about 2 weeks.
Can you tell the jury, just give them an understanding of a general description of the type of project that you were on?
Sure. It was a complete renovation of Beecham High School. It's a big high school. It's a regional high school. I don't know how many thousand. I think it's like 2,000 or 3,000 students go there. So it's a very large facility. They were doing an extensive renovation of the whole high school in trying to get it ready so that it could open up for school shortly after Labor Day. My company, Tempest Insulated Systems, was hired to it was near the end of the project to do the roof removal, and because the roof was all deteriorated, and to put a new roof on the high school.
Okay. Now, your employer, Tempest, they had been hired by someone called a general contractor.
That's right, Skylark Construction.
What is a general contractor?
A general contractor is essentially the construction company that runs the whole job site. They're the ones who make sure the plumbers are doing what they're supposed to do and show up on time, and they coordinate all the trades and making sure the job is run in a safe manner and it's run in a timely manner, and just kind of basically oversee the all the details of the construction project.
And you touched on it, but they're in charge of making sure the job is safe, correct?
That's right. That's what the general contractor.
And were there
Yes.
meetings held on this site?
Yeah, there were some.
Okay. Are you generally a part of those types of meetings?
Not normally, no.
And why is it, or who is involved in those meetings?
Usually the meetings are among the foremen for the various trades and the general contractor.
And generally speaking, would it be fair to say that it's your foreman who would then be responsible for conveying certain messages to you?
Yes, whatever. If there was something specific or unique to the project, the foreman would then tell us, the workers, something specific or unique to this particular project.
Now, this accident happened on August 17th of 2011. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And let's just start at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
So, what happened when you got to the job site that day?
I got to the job site. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning. Actually, maybe a little before, maybe about 7:45. I got my tools from my truck, and I spoke to the foreman. I said, all right, here's, what section of the roof are we going to be working on today? We were kind of nearing the completion of the roof removal project. So once I knew where we were going to go that day, I went to that particular work platform with a couple of my coworkers, and we climbed up to the roof and we began the roof removal.
Okay. Now, you said that you had a conversation with your foreman prior to beginning your work. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your foreman was who?
Jimmy Willis.
Now, when you spoke,
Trotter was.
When you spoke to your foreman that morning, other than what you just discussed, Did he give you any other instructions whatsoever prior to beginning your work that day?
No.
Did he ever discuss with you or ask you any questions regarding the types of safety devices you were using that day?
The foreman from Tempest?
Yes.
No.
On the day of the accident?
No.
And prior to beginning your work that day, did you have any conversations with anyone whatsoever regarding safety devices that you were going to be using doing your work?
No, I did not.
None at all that day?
None whatsoever.
Now, could you now discuss your work area that you were in at the time that you got hurt?
Sure. If you picture the roof, it's a big flat roof of a big high school building, and there were platforms, which is basically planking, like 2x8 planking, set up on top of structural steel, about 6 to 8 inches off the surface of the roof. And there would be anchor points on these platforms where we'd hook up our lanyards, our safety lines, so to speak, and we would then remove the roofing material in the area surrounding the platforms, so we would keep ourselves from stepping onto the roof. There's times you had to, but it would be kept to a minimum because we'd be able to do the work mainly from the platforms.
Had you been told to stay off the roof prior to the time of the accident?
Mr. Trotter, the foreman from Skylark, he said it once, like the first day, stay off the roof unless you're wearing the harness, but it was just, I'm not sure, it was the first day, and he knew that we had to be on the roof to remove the roofing materials. There was just no other way.
Well, let me ask you this. Was it possible to access all areas where you were working by avoiding walking on the roof?
Of course not. Of course it was impossible.
Did you ever discuss with anyone, either from your employer or anyone who worked for the general contractor, the problem regarding the need to walk on the roof?
I mean, we were all aware of it. We knew we had to walk on the roof. There was just, unless the platform was covering the entire roof and you couldn't get to the roof surface, at some point you were going to have to step on the roof to get rid of the debris that you had pulled up from the gypsum.
Did you complain to anyone about the problem?
I mentioned it to my foreman, but he knew about it.
Okay. And if you made a stink about something like this, what would happen?
Well, my foreman would then, in my experience, Mr. Willis, would bring it to the attention of the foreman for the general contractor, who in this case was Jim Trotter.
And if you kept complaining, someone would suddenly tell you there was no work left for
well,
you, right?
I mean, that's, there gets to a point where they don't want to hear it. This project in particular, school was opening in a couple of weeks.
So let's talk about the accident.
Okay.
Could you explain to the jury how the accident happened?
Sure. We were finished with the section of the roof that we were working on, and we were going to the next section of the roof to basically, it was going to probably be the last section, and we had to do the removal on.
Let me just stop you for one
Sure.
second, please. In order to work on the roof, was there certain safety equipment that you utilized?
Yes.
Could you explain what that was?
Well, certainly. I had it's called a harness. It's a vest that attaches, around my legs, around my chest, below my buttocks, and it latches in place. And from there, it's called a lanyard. It's like a long rope with a hook on both sides, and it's retractable. Think about it as a seat belt for a car. If you walk slowly, the lanyard lets itself out slowly, but if you start moving fast, or if you fall, it immediately snaps and grabs, so you don't fall very far. You can't move too fast. So that would be attached to an anchor point, which is essentially like a metal ring that's hooked to the structural steel of the building, and that's located on the work platforms, and that's where I would attach my lanyard.
Now, again, this was your equipment, correct?
The harness and vest and lanyard were my equipment.
Okay, and you'd bring this with you to the job?
On this side, I did.
And prior to you beginning your work that day, did anyone suggest that you use something different?
No.
Okay. Now, could you continue as far as explaining what you were doing prior to the accident occurring?
Well, I was going to bring my tools to the next work platform so that we could continue, it was after lunch, so we could continue removing the roof. So my lanyard wasn't long enough to reach the next work platform. So I had to unhook it from the anchor point at the platform, and then I was walking with my tools to the next work platform, and that's when the accident happened.
Okay, and could you describe how the accident occurred?
Well, I'll never forget it. I was walking on the decking, and all of a sudden, I could just feel there was nothing under my feet, and I knew I was falling. And I remember I landed. We were working above the pool in the school, and they had scaffolding above the pool.
You were thinking about your wife and children as you were falling, correct?
Yes, I was thinking about my wife and children, and would I ever see them again.
Okay.
All right, and then so at that point, I know I fell, and I landed both feet right onto the decking or the scaffolding that was above the swimming pool area, and at that point I knew I had hurt my legs pretty bad.
Now, could you explain, is there a reason why you unhooked yourself prior to the accident occurring?
I couldn't physically reach the other platform. My lanyard wasn't long enough. The retractable lanyard wasn't long enough to reach the next platform. Normally, what we would have done if we had the right length lanyards, if they'd given us the right length lanyards, I would be able to walk to the other platform, then I'd yell back to one of my coworkers, okay, unhook me now from the anchor point that I was previously at. He'd unhook me, and then I would reel in the rope, the lanyard, and then I'd attach it to the next platform that I just got to.
You didn't have that type of equipment with you that day, did you?
No, I did not.
Now, was there something else that you could have done to access the area where you were traveling to prior to the time you'd fallen?
Well, I mean, not practically. I mean, there were ladders that I would have had to climb up off the roof with all my tools, gotten down to the bottom, then taken all my tools back up to the next platform, and climb back up and done it that way. That would have taken at least a half an hour or more. And with this job, I wasn't going to push that issue, considering the time pressures we were under.
Well, there are also risks associated with doing that as well.
Yeah, if you ever tried to climb down a ladder with a toolbox, you'll know that that's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Okay, and so let's talk about what happened after you fell.
Okay.
What was the next thing that you remember?
I don't know if I blacked out, but I remember laying on top of that, on top of the scaffolding above the pool, and I was screaming in pain. And I knew that I had done something really bad to my ankles, my legs. And next thing I remember, I know people were coming over to me, saying, Jerry, what happened? What happened? And and at that point, I think they realized that it was bad. So I remember somebody, I don't know who, calling an ambulance. And police arriving, an ambulance arriving, and I remember being strapped to a backboard and taken into the ambulance.
And you were then taken to the hospital?
And I was taken to Chamberlain Hospital into the emergency room.
What happened when you got to the emergency room?
Well, first thing, the doctors, I remember them just coming to see me, and they were rushing me. It was everyone. It was a big rush at that point. My ankles were, at this point, I knew they were broken. They had to be. They were in such. I was in such pain. They were taking me to the to get X-rays of my ankles, and I remember going and having that done. And I remember then Dr. Willis coming over and saying to me, explaining to me that it was really bad and they needed to do surgery.
So I assume at some point you were administered pain medication. Is that correct?
I know they gave me something. I mean, honestly, it's a bit of a blur at that time, but I know at some point, maybe it was either right before or right after the X-rays, I know they had hooked up some morphine or some kind of drip to my IV, and it took the edge off, but it certainly didn't. That
was what I was getting at.
Right.
It was from the time that you fell until the time that you did receive that IV. How do you feel?
Oh, it was, imagine both ankles were just on fire. I mean, the pain was just excruciating. And until like I said, until that morphine, I think that's what it was, until that took that edge off, it was just unbearable.
Okay, so you had surgery?
I had surgery the next day on both ankles.
And after the surgery, what was your next course of medical treatment?
Well, I mean, I stayed in the hospital for 8 days. I was not really going to be weight-bearing on both ankles for a while. So they basically got me at the point of the hospital where I could be discharged to the rehabilitation facility, to the point where I could either move around with a wheelchair or walk with the aid of a walker. So after the 8 days at Chamberlain Hospital, they transferred me to the Haller Rehabilitation Facility, where I spent the next month.
And what type of difficulties did you experience while you were in the rehabilitation facility?
Well, I had to learn how to walk. I mean, I had to learn how to walk with two legs, two ankles that essentially couldn't move. I was using a wheelchair when I wasn't to get around most of the time, except for when I was doing the physical therapy. Eventually I started to use a walker, and I was basically doing 3 hours a day every day at that facility, trying to learn how to walk again.
And at some point you were discharged from
And
the
I was discharged. I think it was after about a month I was discharged to my house, and then I continued doing outpatient rehabilitation for the next month and a half, 3 days a week.
And just describe what that was like.
Well, the outpatient rehab wasn't, it was mostly just kind of like walking and doing some leg stretching and things that I could walk, holding on to a handrail, and different exercises to kind of regain my balance and strengthen my legs. It was extremely painful, and it was a difficult thing for me to even get to the rehabilitation facility because my wife was home with these 2 young kids, and eventually I just realized I could do all these exercises at home. I could watch the kids while my wife went and did her errands, and I wasn't really getting anything from the physical therapy that I couldn't do at home.
Now, today,
Yes.
are you currently working?
No, I'm not.
Why aren't you working?
Well, I mean, I walk with a cane when I'm outside my house. I can't do roofing anymore. I can't do any type of heavy construction or any construction for that matter anymore. I can't carry anything. I can't walk up. I can't use a ladder. I can't lift anything that's over 20 pounds. And as far as the restaurant management...
Let's just stop there for a second. Have you ever looked into whether or not there's any light-duty work available for you in construction?
There's no such thing. That's people say, oh, the job foreman, they suggest, oh, that's light-duty construction. Every job foreman of every site I worked at works right along with the workers, and if he can't work right along with the workers, they'll get another foreman who can. He'll be hammering, doing the same type of roofing stuff that we all do, climbing up ladders. There's just no such thing as light-duty. That's just a myth.
Now, you also have an associate's degree, correct?
I do.
And what is that in?
It's in restaurant management from Westchester Community College.
Have you given any thought to working in restaurant management?
I have. I did it, right when I got out of school, and it was not only the pay wasn't that great, but I had to be on my feet. I mean, I had to be on my feet, basically doing, running around, whether it's serving, hosting, being a maitre d', however you want to describe it. You were on your feet for 10, 12-hour days. I can't walk from here to there without being in excruciating pain. I limp. I have a cane. I mean, that would be great, seeing me being the limping maitre d' at a restaurant, and who would hire me? I mean, I work with a cane to escort people to their tables. I mean, that's just not reality. In this economy, it's not going to happen.
And have you given any thought to any other types of profession?
I have. I'd like to find something that I could do, but given the economy the way it is right now and given my condition, I just don't see anyone really hiring me, or they're going to hire me. I'm going to get paid a very minimal salary when I was making all this money, $75,000 a year with all these great union benefits. So, if that's what they're going to say, I should go back and get a $5, $8 an hour job. I'll try.
How did you feel about your work?
I loved it. I loved doing it. Like I said, I took a lot of pride in being able to build things with my hands and do things that people would be proud of. I would always drive past, there was a building, an office building in my hometown, and I would drive past it with my daughters all the time, and I'd say, Daddy put the roof on that building. And it was something I was very proud of. I remember my dad doing that with us when we were little, driving past saying, oh, I built that house or I built that building. And it was something I took a lot of pride in, and I can't do that anymore.
And were there other things that you enjoyed doing before this happened?
Sure. I used to coach my daughter's softball team. I used to play baseball when I was in high school, and I coached my daughter's softball team. They both were playing and starting to play, the little one, and they were both pretty good at it, and I loved doing that. Now I'm the dad sitting on the on the folding chair, next to the dugout watching, because I can't coach first base, I can't run, I can't throw, I can't do anything that I used to be able to do with my daughters as far as being outside with them and teaching them about the sport I used to love to play.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel horrible. I mean, I'm half a dad now. I'm not the dad I used to be. I always wanted to, teach my daughters to play, and now I have to watch them.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.